How does it feel to be adopted? What does it mean to search for your origins? Adoption is a life altering experience for everyone involved, but for adoptees, the question of identity is never simple. It's a lifelong journey shaped by mystery, longing, and sometimes profound discoveries. I've spent the last 8 years listening to over 250 adopted people from all walks of life and around the world who share their adoption stories. People who lived through, thrived, and merely survived adoption, many of whom dared to search for their biological roots. Some found long lost family, others uncovered unexpected truths, still others found no answers at all. But all of them shared raw, unfiltered stories of resilience, identity, and self discovery. Now, their voices come together in my new book, The Adoptee Experience. Inside the cover, you'll find what adoptees experience in their adoptive families, why so many of us feel compelled to search, and the deep emotions that drive us. How fantasies about birth parents shape our expectations before adoption reunion. The role of DNA testing, access to records, and other tools that impact adoptee searches, and the emotional roller coaster of attempting adoption reunions to reconcile the past, whether the journey brings joy, heartbreak, or something in between. The Adoptee Experience isn't just a book, it's a reflection of what it really means to be adopted. If you've ever wondered about your own identity or you want to understand the adoptee journey, this book is for you. Please take a moment to visit whoamireallypodcast.com/adoptee experience. Again, whoamireallypodcast.com/adoptee experience to stay up to date on the book's progress.
When I heard about China banning adoption, I told my dad, I was like, what if I grow up and I can't have kids? What if I wanted to adopt a girl from China? And he was shocked because he didn't think I was thinking about that. But I'm like, of course I'm thinking about it, relating to adoption. And I'm a woman, and usually women love to think about the future. And so I wish I had that family DNA.
Who am I?
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 This is Who Am I, Really? A podcast about adoptees that have located and connected with their biological family members. I'm Damon Davis, and you're about to meet Katie. She was adopted from China as a baby and grew up in a predominantly white American suburb outside of Boston. As she got older, the distance between who she was and the world around her began to widen. As a young adult, Katie is asking big questions, not just about who her biological family might be, but what it means to be seen and to reclaim the parts of herself that were left behind in China. This is Katie's journey. Katie grew up in a stable middle-class home in the south of Boston, raised by a white family who gave her a life filled with opportunities. But in school, in her community, and even at home, Katie could sense she was different, but didn't yet have the language to name how she was feeling. So I invited Katie to take me back to where her story began, to those early years in Braintree, Massachusetts.
I grew up in a private high school, so I always felt I don't know, I feel like I was kind of distant per se. I never really saw a lot of the Asian community when I was in private school. The only part of it I saw was the international students. Exactly, yeah. I feel like Braintree is a very white community. I know there's Quincy is a very Asian community, so I feel like as I was growing up, I always went to Quincy with their food and all the Asian restaurants there, the very good food. So I felt a little bit at home there, better than in Braintree.
Tell me about your family structure. What are your parents' nationalities or ethnicities?
Yeah.
And
So
how'd you get along with them?
right. So my both my parents are white, and I have an older brother who's not adopted. He's from my biological mother. And growing up, I feel like we had a really close relationship overall. And Right now, I also feel like that my brother and I, we're a little bit distant just because we're older and we have our own lives,
Yeah.
but we still talk to each other, just not as much. I kinda do miss, like, back in the day when we were kids, how we used to, like, play around with each other. He always annoyed me.
Yeah.
So, I kinda miss that, but I think that's just a part of growing up.
And
But
how
yeah.
did you get along with your adoptive mom and your adoptive dad? What were your relationships like?
So, I think pretty good. My dad, we always got along, like, he's a very neutral guy, and I feel like with my mom, we've had past arguments before growing up because, I feel like it's also a mother-daughter relationship,
Yeah.
how you kinda butt heads. I think that's
Yeah.
typical in any mother-daughter relationship, but I also feel like I've been talking to my therapist about this, that it's also because I have a primal wound, and she actually recommended me a book called The Primal Wound, and it's just about how being adopted, you have this, like, instinctual primal wound from being abandoned from your birth mother.
So, Katie isn't just talking about cultural differences, she's describing a deeper sense of disconnection. Her classmates didn't look like her, and even the presence of international students felt more foreign than familiar. So, from early on, her sense of identity was already complicated by what was missing. But in nearby Quincy, surrounded by the food, the language, and the people who mirrored her, she felt something else, a pull towards home, even if she couldn't explain why. Katie admits that her relationship with her adoptive mother had its challenges, but her therapist helped name something deeper, the primal wound, that unspoken grief so many adoptees carry beneath the surface. And once it was named, everything began to shift. It's one thing to feel distant, it's another to understand why.
I think as I grew older that I felt like I was kinda getting distant from my mother. I mean, we still get along, but it's just growing up, we've had a lot of arguments,
Mm.
so I
Are
feel
they
like
are some of the arguments because of that primal wound that you feel a certain kind of way about yourself as an Asian, as a woman in America, and that she's not able to identify with that wound that you live with?
yeah, I think some of it has to do with that. Like, going to the China adoption policy, how they changed it. I mentioned it to her, and she didn't really make it a big deal that I thought she would react differently, but she kinda just, like, put it off, and
What did you think she was gonna say?
I just thought she'd be like, "Oh my god, like, that's crazy," but she kinda was just like, "Oh," and I was like, "You're not, like, shocked?" Because I was shocked, and she's like, "It doesn't really affect me." I'm like, "Yeah, but it affects me." So, it's hard to really portray, like, how she's feeling as well versus my feelings because 'cause they're both different, and I just feel like that she just doesn't understand where I come from sometimes because of that trauma wound and how some certain stuff she doesn't relate to.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When you talk about this cessation of Chinese adoption, so for anybody who's not aware, just at the beginning of September 2024, China suddenly and without explanation stopped allowing the adoption of Chinese children into the United States. Given where we are politically, I could see that there could be a component of that. However, it's also my understanding, and maybe I don't know if you know this, Katie, that there's been a significant loss of the population to adoption, right? That there are, and maybe you can help clarify this. It's my understanding that the Chinese government favors boys, so
Mhm.
many more girls are sent away. And now you've basically got a drain on the female population for younger generations. Is that roughly correct? Tell me what you know about this, the ban, or what your sense is, even if it's not something you read, but here's what my gut tells me. I'd love to hear your opinion.
Yeah, so I honestly don't know too much about it as well. There's not a lot of details that really was out there. I looked at I saw on Instagram, I follow this account called the Nan Chang Project, or sorry if I pronounce it wrong, but it's like Nanchang, Nanchang. It basically just said about how they are banning adoption, and they're also banning from whatever families already went through that adoption process and almost are there to get their child. They, like, banned that as well. So I felt bad for the people that was already going through that adoption process, and it just got banned, and now they can't.
Right.
And I also just don't I think I remember seeing that, like, basically, they're just saying, yeah, they don't have a lot not enough population. So and you are right, there are mostly girls that are being adopted because most likely the families want the guys because of they wanna take their family name and, like, they're more respected.
Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic, and the abruptness of that cessation of international adoptions is an interesting moment in time. I'm curious, you said something that interested me, Katie. You said that this adoption ban, your adoptive mother said it doesn't affect her, but you said it does affect me. How did you mean that it does affect you?
Because I think for me, I feel like I have some place there, because that's where you're born, that's where your family is, your biological family, and to me, when I hear anything related to adoption in China, I feel like that relates to me because 'cause I've been there, I was there, and being not being pulled away from your family, but being like, "I do have a family there, and I wish I could connect with them," speaks to me, and
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, I love my mother, I do, and, like, I think she's the best, and she gives me the world, both my parents, but I think it's just hard to understand the adoptive mothers to understand what your adopted child's going through when, they're thinking, "Oh, I have a family there, I wish I could connect with them."
Yeah. It's a hard thing to imagine if you haven't lived in that place, right? And when I say that place, I mean that place of being an adopted person, right? It's a very unique lived experience to have been born in one family on one family tree and then picked up and transplanted over to another one. And part of the uniqueness of your transplantation is not just family to family, but country to country around the world,
Mhm,
culture to culture as well, right? From Asian to a white family and a white community. It would be
mm,
different, I would imagine, if you were adopted into a predominantly Asian community and an Asian family. Your
mhm.
lived experience might be different. Am I right?
Yes.
Katie's love for her parents is clear, but so is her longing to be more deeply connected to her ethnicity. China's abrupt end to the international adoptions hit her harder than she expected. For her mom, it was a policy change, but for Katie, it was more personal. The difference between being understood and being seen became real. Reflecting on her childhood, Katie told me about her journey through sports, piano, and even a short lived nursing track in college. But after detours and disappointments, what emerged wasn't a fallback, it was her calling. Katie pivoted to filmmaking, choosing to tell stories on her own terms. Behind the lens, Katie found something she never quite got growing up: control over the narrative. She's also said that parts of Boston have a heavy Asian influence with elements she identifies with and people who look like herself. The mirroring we all need to feel connected. As she spoke, it occurred to me that Katie's family is white. Most of her schoolmates were white, and her college classmates were white as well. Most people have had at least one moment in their life when they were the only one in the room. Katie has frequently been one of the only Asian people around most of the time. I was curious how she dealt with being the only Asian woman in rooms that don't mirror herself.
I could say that growing up, my parents used to, we were an adoption group, and so there are other adoptees and, like, parents in the same group as my mother. So, we used to, when we were young, celebrate Chinese New Year together, but then that kind of faded away, you're growing up, like, kinda disconnected from everyone. And then I kinda wish we stayed through that tradition because I would love to stay in contact with other adoption families. I have a few that I'm still connected with. So, my good friend Andrea, we reconnected because my mother was working in the same school as her adopted sister. So we
Oh, wow.
reconnected through that, like, back in middle school. So now we're still friends today, and her friend Katie is also adopted from China. So we're all adopted from China,
Oh, wow.
and both Katie's sister and Andrea's sister also adopted from China. So I'm really glad that I have them, and then just recently, this year, I put out there, like, "I'm adopted from China, I'm just trying to look for my birth parents." This girl, Annalise, she messaged me and she was like, "I think we're in the same adoption group." And I talked to my mother and she was like, "Yeah, that's Annalise." I was like, "Oh, wow." It's just crazy because, like, I didn't think else would see my posts, be like, "Oh, we're in the same adoption group." So we reconnected. And then I also have another girl, Ruby. She is also in our adoption group.
That's
So
really cool.
yeah,
How
I'm
is
really
it to be connected to other people who have your unique shared experience of being you're all girls as far as the names that picked up on, all girls adopted from China at the same time? What is that like to have this community around you?
yeah, I'm really glad that I have them. I feel like we all experienced the same experiences and just bonded over the same similarities we went through, and I just think it's such a great thing to have because, you're not alone. So, I'm really thankful that I have them.
Yeah. Can you tell me about if and how you discuss among yourselves your roots in China, your desire to find biological family, the chances that you might never do so or that you might get lucky? Like, how do you all discuss those kinds of things?
Yeah, we don't really discuss it in great detail. I think we just more connect on, like, we're adopted. We should get to know each other more. And I think we all said that we wanted to go back to China and try to, like, look around, experience it all. Because I haven't been since I was adopted, and none of them haven't been since they were adopted. So for Annalise, Annalise went back actually to the social welfare that we were at, and they weren't very strict, so, like, she got to see her foster mother.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and her foster mother remembered her, and I was like, "Wow, that is
Wow.
crazy." Yeah.
That's unbelievable. What did you think about when you heard her story of at least making that kind of connection?
Yeah, that just made me wanna go back even more,
Mhm.
so I think we're gonna try to plan, like, going back in a year or 2 and
Together.
together, yeah.
That'll be really nice for you all to go back and support one another
Mhm.
because it's an emotional journey, and having somebody that can relate and be there next to you is gonna be really valuable.
Exactly, and
Well,
then I mentioned that to everyone that since I'm a filmmaker, I wanna do a documentary about all of our stories and just to go back. I'm not sure what the rules are there because I know they're strict government to just film there and, like, make a whole documentary about our adoption stories.
that would be amazing.
Yeah.
That'd be really interesting. Wow. What is your I don't know much about the Chinese adoption engine and the ways through which people can connect back. Are there I guess what I'm thinking about is, in the United States, you've got 23andMe and Ancestry DNA. Super easy.
Mhm.
But I don't know enough about the openness or closedness of the Chinese government and whether they allow that kind of genetic reconnection. Is that a tool that is available to Chinese adoptees?
Yes, it is. So I've been following the Nanchung project, and they said on their website that they accept blood samples or saliva DNA and that they ship it to China and put
Mm,
it in their system. And I've heard they've gotten a lot of matches because it's in the Chinese government system.
is
So,
that right? And so
right,
the
yeah.
Chinese government allows that kind of connectivity to their information.
Yeah, yeah. So they have, I forget what it's called, but they have a whole system that allows adoptees to bring in their DNA and to find families that are there for a match.
And is that something you intend to do?
I do, yeah. I actually sent the website link to my parents the other day. I was like, "I think this is something I should do." And I told them, like, they have had a lot of matches, and my mother was like, "That would be unbelievable." Like, and my dad was like, "Yeah, you should do it." So I
Really? So
think
they're
I
supportive.
wanted to. Yeah, they are.
That's really great. Really amazing. I'm wondering about your feeling though. It's my understanding that in Asian cultures, bloodline, heritage, genetics are extremely important, right? That you,
Yes.
as a part of a bloodline, are holding on to an entire family history, and that a person like yourself can be seen as being outside of the bloodline. I'm wondering how you're feeling about anyone's receptivity to being found, located, what have you. What do you think about in terms of Asian heritage being so focused on purity, for lack of better words?
So, for one, I don't know if you have seen this documentary, but it's called The One Child Nation.
I've heard of it. I
And
haven't seen it.
yeah, it's a really good documentary about
Mhm.
the adoption in China, and it really spoke to me because it spoke details about girls being drowned in the river or girls just being abandoned or sold off to some other families. It really, like, makes me realize the reality of it all and how they just didn't want girls and how they think boys are it. That's their main thing. They want that because of the family. They keep the family name. And for me, I just think that's, I don't know, that's just not great. It's not, I don't know how to put words into it because it's kind of hard to put words in it.
Let me ask you from a different perspective. You are here in
Mhm.
America as a woman, right? You are a videographer. You basically have your own business. You have rights that I would imagine perhaps a person might not have in other parts of the world. I don't know about China, but it would seem to me that a society that undervalues women and is what sounds like shipping them away, and as you've said, relieving themselves of having too many women around, it doesn't sound like you would be very appreciated in society. But you live in America where you are appreciated as a woman who's creative and is growing a business and has rights among other things. What does it make you think of when you think about the potential of having grown up in that society?
I did think about this and I am truly grateful for things that had happened to me growing up and growing here in America. And I even asked this to my adoptee friends, like, what if your parent got me instead of, the little switcheroo action?
Mhm.
It's just crazy how everything works. And I just think that if I was there in growing up in China, I don't think I would love it there. I don't think I would be happy with my life. That's just a whole hypothetical, but, like, I just think the whole government there is just very strict,
Mhm.
and I don't think I would visit there, but I don't think I would live there.
Katie has imagined a life she might have had, a life governed by a system that saw her as expendable simply because she's a girl. But I couldn't help thinking that for all the hardships she might have faced in China, it's still her country of origin, and if she was raised there and indoctrinated into the culture, she would not know the difference. It's because of adoption that she can look in from the outside and say she wouldn't want to live in that country. Conversely, because Katie is on the outside of the country, her ability to uncover her identity as a Chinese woman is blocked, also because of adoption. She's trying to locate her bloodline that once let her go. Katie submitted her DNA sample to GEDmatch domestically in 2019 in hopes of finding some distant connections that could assist with her search. I was curious about her hopes and dreams for her adoption reunion search in the future.
I hope that I can find either a family member or my parents in the future. I just hope I can connect with someone that knows my past and
Yeah.
to just really figure out, okay, who am I, like, family wise? It's such a weird thing to explain how you're feeling as an adoptee because I think a lot of people think they're alone, but they're really not. So I think that being adoptee doesn't mean you're alone in the experiences you go through. A lot of people have similar stories. I'm
Yep.
really glad that you portray all these stories through your
Mm.
podcast.
Thank you. No, this is my pleasure. I have come to realize I've probably crossed paths with way more adopted people than I've ever realized, right? I was at an event recently and it was an adoption related event. So I knew the person I was speaking with was also an adoptee. But I said, I got to tell you, If you and I were at some industry event and this was work related, adoption might never come up.
Right.
And you and I might never know that we have this in common. And it's just fascinating to think of the number of adoptees that are out there. One, whom we come in contact with. Two, who are comfortable enough to speak openly about their adoption. Because three, there are probably a great many who are not ready to talk about their adoption, that it is triggering and challenging. And I frequently think about the juxtaposition of people like you, Katie, who are openly coming on to speak about this,
Mm.
but then the number of people out there who will never ever step forward to speak with me or anybody else because they just don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, I think for me that I think this year actually, because I got a new therapist and she is also adopted and she works she works a lot with adoptees. And I think she really is helping me out trying to figure out like the past and what I feel. And I never really talked about my adoption story and how I felt. I felt like it didn't really define me, but it actually does. And I think that's the realization I needed this year, that being adopted isn't bad. It's not a bad thing. And it's just something you just really have to explore and what you like want to learn about yourself.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really glad you raised your therapist because I heard you mention it before, and I was going to ask you if you had found an adoption competent therapist. And it sounds like you did because your therapist is adopted as well, right? And so you got a new one. Was the previous one not adoption competent and not an adoptee?
Yeah, yeah. I think she's my third therapist. The last two weren't adopted really, like they don't work with adoptees. And I'm really glad I found her. I found her online and it really helped me a lot trying to relate. Like I didn't really think that's the root of my problems, but it was most likely this is your past. This is how, you like how you are.
Can you articulate a little bit more what the difference is between just having a therapist and
Mhm,
having one that is actually adoption competent? You've experienced this now, and I'm just wondering if you
mhm.
could share a word or two about just how it feels different to speak with one versus the other.
Yeah, I feel like the past therapist I had, they really didn't go into asking questions about my past, how it relates to my adoption story, and I feel like just didn't go into detail of like, "Oh, this is why you did this," or "This is how you're feeling because of this." But with my therapist now, she's like, "What if, something about your mother, it could relate to things in the past?" Like, she just asks certain questions that I've never been asked before and, like, challenges me. So I
Mhm.
think that's a really good thing. You need to find a therapist that challenges you and asks you, like, difficult questions because that's what you're in therapy for, and I feel like my past experiences, they never really challenged me.
Oh, that's really interesting. Wow, that's part of what you need is for someone to dig deep.
Mhm.
And they're supposed to have the skill set to do that. You shouldn't have to go in there and dig yourself and pull it out for them. They should be part of the
Exactly, yeah.
process of helping you pull it out. That's
Mhm.
really fascinating, huh? I wanted to ask you also, I think you used the words "at this time in my life." You were talking about the need for therapy. What's happening for you that now is a moment that necessitates an adoption competent therapist to be a support for you?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. I think it's because I'm getting older. Birth is actually coming soon. It's on the 28th. And I feel like, you're in almost in your mid 20s and I'm still living with my parents and you're just trying to figure out what you want to do in life, what like you want to explore and also just exploring your past of okay, this is me, but like why is it me, Trying to figure out what you wanna do, and I know I'm not alone too. I know a lot of people are in their mid-20s are like, "Okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going with it."
Yeah.
So, I think also last year I graduated college. So, I think after, when you graduate college, "Okay, what am I doing?"
Katie just named something many adoptees know in their bones. It's not always the reunion that triggers reflection. It's the existential moments throughout our lives, like Katie's birthday and earning her degree, that have given her pause between one chapter and her next. And with the help of an adoption competent therapist, Katie finally saw that her adoption wasn't a footnote, but was a fully fledged, explainable part of her identity, as her therapist helped her to see. Katie mentioned her birthday was approaching, but for a Chinese adoptee and many other international adoptees, and even some domestic adoptees, it's not clear that her birth date is accurate.
I don't know if my birthday is my real birthday because they kinda just, "Okay, this is where we found you." I was dropped off on my adoption slip. It said, Google translated it, that an elderly man saw me on the stairs of the Social Welfare Institute of Shigao County, and it was about, like, 2 hours away from Nanchang, where I'm from, and they found me on September 29th. So then they put on my birthday, September 28th.
Right. And you could have been 1 day old or 10 days old or a month old.
Yeah, yeah. I was adopted 15 months, so that's what they guessed. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a guess.
Yeah.
How does that hit you to realize with fair certainty that your birthday is not actually your birthday?
I think I just grew up to accept that. I never really thought about it, and I also just didn't think, "Oh, let me actually." Sorry, I want to mention this about how I found out I was adopted. It was when I was in 1st grade, and I was sitting in the cafeteria eating lunch, and one of the girls was like just said to me, "Your mother's not your real mother." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "You're adopted." I'm like, "What does that even mean?" I didn't know what the word adoption meant. And
Wow.
so when I came home, I guess I don't really fully remember this, but my mom said I was brushing my teeth in the bathroom and she was like doing something. And I was like, "Mom, what does adoption mean?" And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "This girl said that I'm adopted and you're not my real mom. What does it mean?" And at that moment, my mom's like, "Oh God, like I have to tell her." So she told me, and I didn't know how to feel because I was young. So I just was like, okay, I was kind of just confused. And
Mhm.
I was young, so I didn't really, Asian and white parents, I didn't connect that.
Yeah.
So
It's so
I
funny, Katie. I normally would ask a person what the adoption was like and how it was discussed. But I think in the back of my mind, I took for granted what you were saying to me, that you grew up in a predominantly white community in a white family. So it was just natural that you knew this. But
Mhm.
it's fascinating to hear that there was a time when it wasn't connected for you and that your parents hadn't discussed it with you at all.
Yeah,
And
I don't
there was this discovery moment of, wait, what? They're not my real mom? What does that mean? That's
Mhm.
wild.
Yeah. And I think it was just a shocking moment that I didn't really put it in my brain, or I didn't really remember it. So I think it was just a weird thing for me.
Mm.
And I think afterwards I was like, "Okay," and then just moved on.
Especially at a young age like that, we're not mature enough to really recognize what's being said to us, right? You don't have enough experience to recognize the gravity of what has been revealed.
Mhm.
And so, of course, it wouldn't necessarily stick as a deep memory, but now as you reflect on it, especially at this time in your life, I'm sure you recognize how pivotal that moment was or what it represents. Really
Yeah.
fascinating. Frequently, adoptees consider our genetics, especially when we think about our future considerations of family and children. For Katie, being adopted and her lack of genetic history means she lives with a mystery about what she might pass on to her children, which also means even dreaming about her future can be overcast by shadows of uncertainty. For Katie, the end of Chinese adoptions wasn't just a policy change, it signaled a closed door for one of her possibilities for growing her future family or supporting another Chinese girl just like herself. I asked Katie about how she thinks about her future and creating a family.
The first thing that comes to mind actually was when I heard about China banning adoption. I told my dad, I was like, "What if I grow up and I can't have kids? What if I wanted to adopt a girl from China?" And he was shocked because, like, he didn't think I was thinking about that, but I'm like, "Of course I'm thinking about it," like, relating to adoption, and I'm a woman, and usually women, like, love to think about the future and different sort of what ifs. So, like, I wish I had that family DNA of, like, okay, what if I have this disease or this type of thing? And it does, kinda suck that I don't have that, and I think there are DNA packets that you can do to, like, find out what health related thing you have, but I don't know if I could do that because I think you need certain information about it as
Yeah.
well.
Now, the challenge we have with genetic databases is they're only as good as the samples they have in them, right? If you
Mm.
were to do a 23andMe style test in China, you would have much, much better results because you would be in a Chinese population of folks who had submitted a sample versus here in the United States and whatever the global population is that's represented. The Chinese population is going to be dramatically lower in their sample size. And so your results, while they could be somewhat accurate, will be skewed because you're just not in the same populations. But it seems like it would be worth doing. Like there's some generic stuff that's just human based, right? Your propensity for certain diseases and other things. And it might be worth it for you to do that to at least alleviate some of those concerns and satisfy some curiosities.
Right, yeah, so I actually did 23andMe
Mm,
here, but I didn't get the results of, like, if I have first family, and I did that 23andMe DNA, you can get that data and put it to a GED match, it's called,
yeah. Jed match. I've
and
been in there too. Yeah.
yeah, and I didn't get any results as well. It's also kinda a difficult website to figure it out. You have to, like,
It's
look at.
super nerdy, yeah, it's
Yeah,
really data driven, like, you gotta be
it
a bit of
is.
a data wonk to really dig into it, so I'm
Yeah.
with you. Yeah,
Right. So that's
fascinating.
why I like how the Nanchang project has that ability to, like, send in your DNA or your blood sample to that Chinese government because,
Yeah.
like, there's more matches there than here.
International adoptions are frequently huge endeavors involving the adoptive parents coordinating with domestic and foreign adoption agencies, making travel plans to visit prospective children, and logistical, legal, and physical transitions from one place to the other as the child is attached to a new culture. Katie said it was a long process for her adoptive mother to pass all of the home inspections before she and Katie's grandmother flew to China to bring her home. Katie tells the story of her international adoption from China.
My mom it took, like, about 2 years that my mother had to go through or my parents had to go through the adoption process. It's a lot of documents, a lot of, checking out the house. And she once she got approved and all that, she flew with my grandmother, who sadly passed in 2008,
Mm,
and they went to get me, and my brother and my dad stayed here because my parents were scared that if they were both on a plane together, there could be a plane crash.
yeah.
So that's why my grandmother and my mom went to get me together, and they stayed at the Guangzhou in the White Swan Hotel, and that hotel was mostly, a lot of adopted parents stayed there, and that's where most of my, adoption group family stayed.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, yeah,
They
and,
were hosting families there. They had set up a process. That makes sense.
yeah, yeah, so, yeah, that's how so my mother, she contacted no longer there now, but it's called China Adoption with Love through
Mhm.
that process. It's an adoption agency, and so that how she, first started to go through that process. And when my mom came, she adopted me on December 7th, 2001, and
Mm.
I have that adoption date on my rib cage. I got it tattooed in Roman numerals.
Did you really?
Um
That's really cool.
I did, yeah. And it's funny because my mom hates tattoos, absolutely hates them, and when I told her, like, I wanted to get that, she was like, "Okay, fine." And so my dad actually went t to get my adoption papers to make sure that was the date because they didn't want, the wrong date.
Right.
Yeah,
That's really awesome. It's so funny to hear that she hates a tattoo, but because that one was so incredibly meaningful to you both, she was like, "All right, fine."
right, right,
That's
yeah.
funny.
And I later found out when I was looking through my adoption papers that my Chinese name is Shi. And when I was taking a Mandarin class in college, we had to, like, give our own Chinese names, And that was like I told her, like, "Can I do my actual Chinese name?" She's like, "Yeah." And when I told her my Chinese name, she was like, "That's a rare name because it's 2 in 1, I guess." It's, like, very
Mhm.
rare to have
Mhm.
2 names in full name.
Interesting. Forgive me. I want to just make sure I understand what you're saying. It's the difference between being named Mary and being named Mary Jo. Like
Mhm.
it's two names together. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Interesting. Wow. And that doesn't happen in Chinese culture much.
I guess not, no, and she translated it to, like, it means poem and, superiority. So I guess it's a rare last name because it relates to, like, some higher up in, like, a province or some town.
So you have a full name. But that's interesting. So these documents, if you were left on a doorstep, I don't imagine that you were left with a note that said this child's full name is. So it sounds like you were given that name through the foster care system. Is that right?
Yes, yes, the Chagall County Social Welfare Institute gave me
Hmm.
that name.
Interesting. So you basically still don't have any clue as to what your actual name could have been. This is a name that
Mm,
is a foster name.
yep, no, I
Wow.
I don't know. I know, I'm, like, very well, not surprised, but, like, I'm just wondering why whoever put me at that doorstep didn't leave a note or anything.
Yeah, but if let's imagine this though. If they left a note that could identify you back to them somehow, right? If they had put a note with your name on it and that was like an actual name that was given to you by the family, you would be identified back to the family.
Right.
And that wasn't the goal by leaving
Yeah,
you on a doorstep, right? So really interesting. Wow.
yeah, yeah.
What did your mother tell you about why she wanted to adopt? You said she already had a son. What was her reason for adopting?
She said she just always wanted a baby girl from China. So, I mean, I get that reasoning, but I also, like was like, "Okay, is there more? Like, why from China?"
I was wondering the same. It
And
feels like an ideal in her head.
yeah, I think maybe just 'cause the population there and how it was back then that she was like, "Okay, I want to adopt a girl from China."
Well, she also, being older than yourself, would have more information about what it would be like to be raised as a woman in China. And
Mhm.
I don't want to put thoughts or feelings into her, but as a older woman than yourself who perhaps was more informed about China than you were, she may have said, "I would like to make sure at least one of those girls does not meet the demise that government has in store for her." You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Katie has put herself out there in online forums trying to find any clues that could connect her to her biological past and her history. She said she's in 15 to 20 Facebook groups, posting frequently with the facts she has about her story, where she's from, and details about her adoption and birth date. Katie is searching for anything that would connect her to her biological family and her past. Domestically, there are groups of volunteers called Search Angels who dedicate their time to helping adopted people locate their family. I asked Katie if there was a similar network of volunteer helpers for the Chinese adoptee community.
I haven't gone to it, but I remember one woman sent me a name. She helps with other adopted parents find their adoptee biological family, and I think I should, just keep searching on the internet, on Facebook, and then also put my DNA out into that Chinese system. And I think it's just a difficult process because I have really no first steps to go to because I have nothing. There's no information
Yeah.
about my biological parents, anything to do with them. So
Yeah.
it's kind of difficult.
Yeah. For international adoptees, especially those who have governments that are very closed and challenging to deal with, I'm always really sensitive to that search process because for as much hope as you have that it will have some success, the obstacles are immense. And
Mhm.
so I absolutely wish you the best of luck, Katie. It's going to be an interesting road, but I would love to hear back from you another time after you've made this trip to China because I
Yes.
had these visions as you were speaking of trying to find that orphanage where you were placed on the steps and trying to find the hotel your mom may have stayed at with your grandmother, and just hitting some of those milestones that are pieces of your story, even if they may not create the entire mosaic of who you are as a person, right?
Right. I really hope that doesn't affect my, future travels of going to that orphanage, because I've heard some of the orphanages are banning like other adoptees coming to see them, and yeah.
Really? Wow. Interesting. Katie, thank you so much for being here, sharing your story. This is
Yeah. Thank you so much
really
for having me.
Of course, my pleasure. And like I said, I look forward to having you back another day so you can tell me a little bit about this eventual pilgrimage to China to learn more about yourself and your heritage, okay?
Yes, I would love that. Thank you.
Take care. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Hey, it's me. Katie's journey reminds us how complex transracial adoption really is. She grew up with love and opportunity, but without ethnic mirrors. Even as an adult, she's navigating what it means to belong in both worlds, to honor the parents who raised her while searching for the family she never got to know in a country she hasn't even seen since she was an infant. Katie presses forward with curiosity and compassion, with her camera in hand and a dream of returning to the place where she was born to find answers not just for herself, but for the other girls adopted alongside of her. Katie and I sat down to chat in the fall of 2024, but now the geopolitical environment has exploded with serious tensions between the US and China. I can't help wondering how the Chinese view of their own children adopted into America might impact Katie and everyone like her as they seek empathy from their native country on their journey home. I'm Damon Davis, and I hope you found something in Katie's journey that inspired you, validates your feelings about wanting to search, or motivates you to have the strength along your journey to learn, who am I really? If you would like to share your story of adoption and your search to locate your first family, please visit whoamireallypodcast.com/share to fill out the short form, and I'll be back in touch. And just a reminder, soon I'll be announcing a new book based on the stories I've heard here on the Who Am I Really podcast. Take a minute to go to theadopteeexperience.com to learn more and sign up to be the first to hear about the book's release.